Good afternoon everyone, my name is Lewis, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all safe and well at this moment in time. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the albums I've been listening to recently. I'm going to share some of my thoughts about each album in turn and why I would recommend them. So, to start off with, the first album is a 1970 release. It's in the vein of West Coast and lounge, and it's by a gentleman called Nelson Riddle, who conducts the 101 strings. Quite a dated cover there, yeah, sure. I love this album. I bought it dirt cheap, this particular one, but that's by the by. Um, Now, Mr. Riddle, he's had quite a career, an illustrious career. Um, I would consider him one of the masters of mood and subtlety, and quite possibly one of the, well, if not the greatest, but one of the greatest arrangers in US popular music. He's been associated with pretty much everybody. He's highly versatile in style, in mood, and in tempo. There's hardly anything which he can't, you know, handle or interpret and be able to, deliver a fantastic product on the basis of that. He makes it all seem so easy, so effortless. And this is an accomplished piece of work. Don't be deceived by the cover. For that particular era, a lot of covers kind of look like this, and by modern taste, yeah, it's pretty boring. But yeah, in terms of the music contained, yeah, don't be fooled. This is cool without bragging, and that impresses me. The tracks to look out for on this particular album are Meandering, Twilight on the Mall, and Retrospection. Really nice tunes. Like I said, I got this dirt cheap, and if you do see it around, I know it's on CD. Definitely on the streaming sites. Have a listen to the tracks, but I've seen it around. Now that I've brought it to your attention and you would have had a listen to it, yeah, don't hesitate to buy it because it's going to be super cheap. Because of the way it looks, probably, it's going to be no more than a few pounds for it. But for the body of work contained on here, you are getting superb value for money. This is a really, really good album. So please check it out. You'd be doing yourself a favour there. So that's the first album. The second album today is a 1975 jazz fusion album by Grieger, Pilar and Anteloni, and it's called Catch Up Volume 1. What a nice cover that is. It's unusual. I really do like that. I know there is another cover alternate which doesn't look as nice as this one or as imaginative, so I'm certainly glad I got this copy. This is the debut album from this Munich trio, and they only released one other album apart from this one, which is a real shame. I really do like the compositions on this album. They're really talented artists, and it's a real shame that I'm sure that their careers went on, but as a trio, just to have two examples of their work seems unfair. So yeah, it's a real shame. On this album, there are particularly excellent drumming and cool synth sounds. So it's ahead of its time in some senses. But I found this an enjoyable journey. This particular album, I really, really, really liked it. Again, when I saw it initially, I kind of went, yeah, I don't know what to make of that. But when I actually heard it, it was like, gee whiz. And so for a short period, I wasn't telling anybody about this album, and that's really unfair because the more people who hear it, the more love that this trio should receive, quite rightfully, for their contributions to music. Um, the standout tracks for me on this particular album are Uncle Joe, Borden, and A Night Without Dreams. Really good tracks. Really good tracks. Yeah, I think once you hear it, you'll think to yourself, "Wow, I wish I'd heard of these guys. Like a decade earlier. It would have changed my life." Um, Notable musicians on this album, apart from the trio, are or is Hans Herbst on congas. That that gentleman can play a conga. He really can. Um, and again, he adds a little seasoning, a little spice to what was already damn fine material. But bless you, sir, for your contribution. You hit it out of the park. So well done to you. Uh, Vinyl. Um, this particular version with this cover, it's probably going to be slightly difficult to find. It shouldn't, but if you do find it, it's not going to be super expensive. It's just finding it, which is the problem. Um, CD, I think that's equally as problematic to find. But if you do, have a listen to it first on one of the streaming sites, and if it's for you, you should be able to track it down. Um, you just got to put a little bit of effort into it. It's not going to be in like your high street retailer type thing. You're going to have to kind of seek it out. But I think it's well worth pursuing this. It's a really fine piece of work. And for my expanding European jazz section, this fitted in lovely. So yeah, I'm pleased with myself for this particular purchase. So well done. The third album today is going to be from my Brazilian side of my collection, and it's a 1975 album, self-titled by a talented gentleman by the name of Emilio Santiago. I like. Not only do I like his pose, I like the denim on denim look as well. That's certainly of a particular time, but bless him, he's rocking it. He's owning that look. Yeah. If I was ever to do a solo album, I think I'd take my cues from this particular gentleman. Um, yeah, he's really good. He's got smooth and charming vocals. I'm not saying he's anything like Curtis Mayfield or Al Green, but he'd be in the same ballpark. He's just a lovely singer, a Lou Rawls type of thing, but he's doing it with, well, he's doing it in Portuguese pretty much. So yeah, I've got a lot of time for this gentleman. He really does cope well with transitions within tunes. Um, he's adept at a variety of styles, and he's just going to give it a go, but not just give it a go, he's going to do it well. And not all musical styles fit all artists. Sometimes you have to pick and choose your battles in terms of being an artist, what songs you can actually sing at what tempo. He seems to glide along, and it's almost effortless. So I really do appreciate that. This particular album's got high production values. So of its time in Brazil, it was probably a more raw sound. There was obviously money put behind this production, and I'm super grateful for that because it sounds absolutely glorious. It's gorgeous. Yeah, high praise album. I really do enjoy this. The tracks that I would recommend from this album would be Saudades. Oh yeah, forgive my Portuguese, it is appalling, but you've got used to that by now, I would have thought. He sings this in a Mark Murphy-ish type of way. That's the artist I can think of off the top of my head who that particular style of singing is reminiscent to. The second track would be La Mulata, and the third would be Bananera. Sorry, that's the third track. Really good album. CD might be problematic to find it. Vinyl should be easier. Again, it's just a case of seeking it out. It's not going to be overly expensive for it, but it's a very nice journey. So if you're into the Brazilian stroke bossa nova scene, this is certainly one to add to one's collection. I certainly don't regret buying it. It's fitted in lovely in my particular collection. So give it a listen. Again, I think you're in for a treat. The fourth album today is one of my holy grails. I'm going to freely admit that straight away. It's a 1975 jazz fusion album, and it's by a gentleman called Grover Washington Jr., and the album is called Mr. Magic. Yeah, that's a fantastic cover. Fantastic. This particular album has two distinct sides to it, not just A and B, but in terms of the compositions and their tempos. On one side, or I think I'd say probably three of the four tracks are beautiful and lush and slow and meandering, and there's one particular track which is more urban and gritty, and we'll get to the recommended tunes in just a moment. An album of high production values, and no, unfortunately it doesn't say it on the front, but it is a CTI Creed Taylor production. So as you would have heard me rant on about a number of times over a number of episodes, when you see Creed Taylor stamp on something, it's pretty much a guarantee that it's a quality piece of material. And again, they haven't disappointed here. This is, yeah, for me, I've got a super soft spot for this album. I really do. Now, let me be honest. Grover Washington is a good saxophonist. He's not the best, but he is really good. But as a body of work, this is outstanding. It really is. For those who are unfamiliar to the jazz fusion sound, this is a really, really good example of it. And I would say as well that this album, like I'm trying to think of who it is now. Freddie Hubbard album. This is another super powered ensemble of musicians. So let me just go through some of the names who are accompanying Mr. Washington on this particular musical journey. Bob James on piano, Gary King and Phil Upchurch share the bass duties, Harvey Mason on drums, and Eric Gale on guitar. That's something else. That's a phenomenal set of musicians. Again, sometimes when you get that many classy musicians in one place, it sometimes doesn't work. But I'm really pleased to say in this particular case, it certainly does. The tracks to look out for on this particular album are Earth Tones, Passion Flower, and the seminal tune Mr. Magic. Again, Mr. Magic's one of those tunes what made me fall in love with music. When I heard it for the first time, it's like, wow, I didn't know music like this existed. Has it dated that well? Yes, it still stands up, that particular tune. I've moved on slightly in terms of my musical taste, but I haven't moved position on this album. I still adore it. I think it's a fantastic body of work. Special mention to the cover photography. A gentleman called Alan McWeeny, who done a really good job. If I could get this album cover as a poster, framing it all day, and yeah, I just think it's a superb album cover. It really does. Well, whenever I see it, I know what I'm gonna get. So it's kind of Pavlovian in terms of, yeah, you see it, it's like, yeah, I know I'm in for a treat when I listen to this. So really good all round album. So well done for everyone who's involved in this particular album. But have a listen to it on one of the streaming sites. You're not going to regret it. It's worth your time. The last album for this episode is a 1969 conceptual jazz album by a gentleman called Lloyd McNeil, and it's called Tanner Suite. This particular album, um, it's inspired by the paintings of Henry Asawa Tanner. Now, as you're going to be listening to this for the first time, just jump on the internet and look up the artist, Henry Tanner, and see his body of work. It is really impressive. Um, yeah, that's what inspired this particular album, and it's very, very good. Now, if you listen to it outside that context, you might not get it, but certainly it will help if you look at, because some of the tracks are titled the same as the paintings. So if you listen to the appropriate track and look at the appropriate painting at the same time, you'll get a better idea of what the intentions were, and I think they successfully manage the challenge of that. Um, so I took a chance on this album in my musical journey with jazz flute. I'd heard some of the material of Robin Kenyatta and Paul Horn, and I super enjoyed that experience. So when I saw this one, I thought to myself, give it a chance. You know you like jazz flute. You know you do. So do yourself a favour and have a listen. You know, you don't have to be committed to it if you don't like it, but certainly have a listen. And yes, I haven't looked back since. This is a really, really good album. The tracks that I would highlight from this album are Daniel in the Lion's Den and the Banjo Lesson. So those two tracks have the associated paintings online for you to see. And as I said before, listen to the track and look at the actual works of art at the same time, and you'll get a much better appreciation of not only Henry Asawa Tanner's journey as a fine artist, but what Lloyd McNeil was intending. McNeil, just for just as a side issue, he's the person who's responsible for the cover design here. So he's a multi-talented individual, and the world's a better place for individuals, well, for individuals like him existing. They're just multi-talented, and we all can learn a lesson for, you know, artists such as himself. So yeah, really good album. This was re-released by Soul Jazz a couple of years ago, so you'll be able to find the vinyl and the CD relatively easily and at an affordable price. I wouldn't say it deserves a place in virtually anyone's jazz collection, but I can understand if you would put this one off in favour of other artists and albums, but certainly get round to it at some point, because this is really good and it's going to stretch you in terms of your jazz appreciation once you get the context of what's going on. So yeah, a worthwhile venture. I love the experience. So yeah, feel free to comment below if you'd like to share your thoughts on this particular album. As you can see, it's in my hands and I'm raving about it, so you know what my opinion is. So that's the final album for today. I'd like to thank you for your time, and if you've liked the content, please consider subscribing, liking and sharing, and comment down below if you've got any observations. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour to spend some time with you. I do appreciate your time, and I hope to see you in the next episode. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you for the next episode. Bye bye.